has I don't know if you've heard of the word powers of attorney, where you give, powers of attorney is usually used in real estate and other legal areas. And in the law, we use the word assignment. Assignment has a bit of the character of powers of attorney. I give you to exploit on my behalf. And usually this is the arrangement. Assignment is usually the arrangement that is made between a songwriter and a publisher. The songwriter assigns his rights to the publisher for the purpose of exploitation. And normally the publisher takes a percentage of that. Of course, in Uganda, we have not had the privilege of precedent in that regard. Much of what we have faced has been misleading. You find a distributor calling himself a publisher. You find like a lot of words have been misused, and on the ground, it has become a challenge. But when we talk about assignment, then we also go back to what is working today. Let's marry this with what is working today. Many of you are songwriters. And let me ask a rhetorical question, because I know the answer. I believe none of you works with a publisher.
Sure.
Yes. So the rhetorical question I wanted to ask, does any one of you work with a publisher? So that means you are self-publishing. Oh. Uh-huh. You see, okay, we may have now to learn a few things from that. So when you're self-publishing, there are some companies that work with artists today who are self-publishing. For example, I am self-publishing, and I use some companies. I don't know if anybody of you uses TuneCore. I use TuneCore. Yes. So what do you use? Yes. So everyone, can you say that on mic so others can be using?
I use DistroKid.
So some of these support self-publishing. And I believe also the days of publishers, for especially small-time creatives, are numbered. But for serious businessmen in the industry, you cannot do away with the publisher. There is Harry Fox Agency in the US. It's a publisher of, it's a body that helps publishers publish. So they are also publishers, but they are doing a job for many other publishers. So like I said, the publisher's role is to help you exploit the work. And given the burden of the digital plane now where we live, it is important to work with the companies that have the software that can be able to help protect the work, because exploiting the work goes hand in hand with capacity to protect it. You understand? So it is important, first of all, to know what you're doing. If you wish to license, it should be clear in the agreement that you draft or that is drafted for you. Because when you say assignment, like I believe some of the contracts you've entered, you have assigned the rights. And I want to warn you against such wide usage of language. Because copyright assignment, in simple terms, is you have given this right for, if you assign copyright, you have given this right to a person to exploit on your behalf. And the arrangement is usually they take a percentage. But the language that should be favored is licensing, where you can properly split the bundle of copyright and sever the right. These are coloring back tones. These are streaming rights. These are broadcasting rights. A band of rights, those we know now and those that will be known in future. And you can license them, particularly to different people, all to the same person, while listing them and making arrangements, legal arrangements in regard to those rights, particularly, not throwing away the whole bucket of bundles ignorantly. Otherwise, many times we have given these people right to do, like collar ringback tones, companies that have been doing collar ringback tones. They graduated to doing streaming without talking to the artist who gave them the rights in the first place. That is very, very important to know. Then future uses. It is always important. The word here, when you see the publisher, I also intend that you understand that when we talk about publisher, we are also including a person who publishes themselves, and which is usually what we do here. The reason why we do self-publishing is mainly because sometimes it is expensive to deal with a publisher, or we have not grown the character of working with publishers, or there is no publisher that has shown us that it is better to deal with them. I can give you an example of Kasiwukira. We had an incident of Kasiwukira. This incident, I want to call it incident, it piqued my interest when he issued the caveat emptor. Caveat emptor is also mainly a doctrine, or is usually a practice that is used in real estate, where a person will pitch a kind of notice on the land. It basically means the buyer should be aware. If you buy, in what we call, you're buying nothing, or buying air, or kugulempeo. So that is the effect. Buyer, be aware that the person selling to you. So in land, that is what we call constructive notice. I had never really seen it in relation to intellectual property. We are privileged to have Professor Kakoza here with us, so he may be able to tell us if he has seen it, but I have not seen it. So, but of course, if a person has a right, there is always a remedy. So we had to dive into the merits of whatever was happening. So Kasiwukira was claiming that he's a publisher. And he was claiming that he has 100% of the rights. But most of the people that went to Kasiwukira, including me, went there for distribution. You understand? We didn't do copyright assignment, per se. In fact, the agreements were mainly to do with the sound recording. Now go back to our understanding, the copyright in the song and the copyright in sound recording. A distributor's role, a publisher deals with copyright in the song. And it is what they exploit by giving several licenses. A distributor, in this case, deals with copyright in the sound recording because he is going to distribute, selling copies. Now, who was Kasiwukira? You understand? Yes. So there is a term they used to say, confused confuser. So if a person is confused, he may confuse the others. And I want to look at it more from the side of benefit. These are clear cases that we need to study to understand the difference between a publisher. When you go to a person and you want them to distribute your music, do they become the publisher? Now, like when I work with TuneCore, yes, I give them certain rights of publishing, but not all of them. They distribute on different channels, and they may give a few rights that are, under the arrangement of their distribution. For example, if a person is going to do TikTok using my song and stuff like that, and you're working with a company like TuneCore, there are standard form understandings, standard form agreements that you enter into, but it does not become copyright assignment. They have a job to do, and they may digitally strike the people that are trying to use my work, monitor the internet on my behalf, but the key word that should be used is license. Why? Because a license is usually very clear. It has clear terms, it has a beginning, and it has an end. And there has been, in the past, a challenge of revoking copyright assignment from publishers. Why? Because when you assign copyright, you start partnering with the publisher in exploitation, meaning that probably they invest some money in the work. So revoking assignment, what happens to the arrangement and the money that they put in prior? So it's very important that we start agitating in understanding, not when you see a word assignment, that is a red flag. It should warn you of something. So the other thing, a salient feature in your agreement, you should consider future uses of your work. Why should you consider future uses? Like we talked about copyright as a band of rights. And the law, even this one, categorically provides for works that are known today and those that will be known in future. Right? So, so in the language of the law, that is section 9. Under section 9, the law talks about the rights of the economic rights of an author to include a right to do in relation to that work any act known or to be known in the future. Nobody knows about the future. And copyright is progressive. The areas that we exploit under copyright today were not the areas that used to be exploited before. I remember when we started out, we were selling some tapes. We were entering agreements with people to sell tapes. Then that changed. And people started doing more of benefiting from the performances. So when people started benefiting from performances, before we knew it, the avenue that was making money was coloring back tones. Then after coloring back tones, now streaming came in. Now streaming is still, riding high. People are now getting a lot of money from streaming. I don't know what the future holds, but what is clear is that copyright is dynamic. So a person should always make consideration for the future exploitation of their work. And the first one is you make sure that the rights you give away are not perpetual. If you fail to do that, you must really indicate the fact that you cap some of the rights that will happen in future. And that is why I said it is important to license, because licenses are usually clear. You license a person to do something particular, meaning that if something comes later, you can easily argue and say, well, this was not even happening. And so you also that clause. If a person is claiming the rights that will be known in the future, that should be also a red flag. And if you're bargaining less, use it to bargain for more. I don't know if that is also clear. The terms of the contract, the songwriter's contract should clearly indicate the validity period of the contract. So you should look at the duration of the copyright. And this is what I usually see the mistake people do. Whether musicians or whatever, every time there is an agreement, or you're dealing with these vendors for coloring back tones, you look at the money and you do not look at the duration. So a guy gives you 3 million and you've not seen that the duration is 10 years. So always look at the duration before you look at anything, because you can lose something for a short time. But if you're going to lose it for a long time, in fact, before you look at what you are selling away, if it is complicated to understand, just look at how long are you selling it away. Because if you have to go back and do mea culpa, you should be able not to do that, to repent forever, for a long time. Mea culpa. Gunsinze. Mea culpa. The Catholics know that term very well. Mea culpa, mea maxima culpa. Gunsingi de dala. Yeah. So another thing for songwriters to look for in relation to their moral rights, in your agreement, remember that the law dictates that the moral rights be respected, and also dictates it on the person who is dealing in the work to attribute, the right of attribution to be maintained. But it can as well be part of your agreement to say that, well, in all these circumstances, even in the instance that the work ends up to be a soundtrack of a movie, I need the attribution to come to me. Remember how the rights revolve. And I want to remind you, section, the biggest enemy, but which can be turned into a friend to a songwriter, is section 8 of the Act. Look at section 8 of the Act. And those that do not appreciate maybe the English language, we may have to translate it, because that is where all the efforts of the songwriters are taken without knowing. Like we said, it is good to know when you're doing something. For example, if you're called as a builder, you come knowing that I am building this mansion for Tom, Dick, or Harry, but then in the evening I'll go back to my heart. You know. You understand? You know that your interest in those premises is the money. So it is even good for the songwriter to know that, yes, my interest here is the money. But then, if I am getting the money, I can get another benefit that the person who has given me the money, for example, the guy who wrote the national anthem. It's a privilege to have written the national anthem. Moral rights, are a good thing. So, I may even say that probably he knew that all he wanted was to be the one that wrote the national anthem. Yes, yes. And then later, he turns around because, I am not in agreement with the fact that he got nothing. I feel like on the moral side, he should have gotten something, but unfortunately, there is a senior lawyer who said that morality should be left to the clergy. I still disagree with that, but but he got, he got nothing, unfortunately. So the songwriter's credits, as you can see, they are important. That is an enforcement of moral rights. Since the law mentions that they should only be accredited where it is practicable, you may dictate on areas where, under normal circumstances, it may not be practicable, but it is part of the agreement. Hey. And you say, you talk with an artist, you say every time you're going to perform my song, you must mention my name. If it is on paper, that is an agreement to the contrary. Whether it is reasonable or not, that is, that is something else. So the scope of songs, that is not really, that is really not very important for this one, but it is very important to know. If it is a particular song and you have an arrangement to sell or to license a person to use just a little bit of it, sometimes it is important even to go to that nitty-gritty of mentioning that I've allowed you to use my song from minute 30 for 30 seconds from this part to this part. And now this is what happens in sync rights. Synchronization or sync rights are the rights you give to a person who wishes to use your work in an audio visual work, like a film. Like a film. So if you give them all of your song, it should be for some good money. If you give them a section of your song, that means, they are only, if they use anything outside that, then you have, they have opened the window to give you some more, money. So I want to end this session here because we started a little bit late, but this was for the purpose of giving you the basics. We did not look at everything, but we tried to comb through everything. And the bottom line, I want to end with a re-emphasis on the section that is very important for a songwriter, which is section 8 of the law. That one, do not forget. And also to emphasize the terms, who is a songwriter in relation to the law, and what can you copy? Who is a songwriter in relation to the law, and who is a producer? Those terms we saw. And also another thing is the doctrine or the principle or the test of originality, which does not call for something to be new. Rather, like Dr. Brain here was telling us, that in this workshop, we should always remember that copying is not the problem, but you split the word copy, write. If you are to copy, copy, write. Because when you copy, write, then you can say you are inspired. You are inspired. And in other words, if you want to be a songwriter and also a writer, attribution is important, because it also helps you if you want to claim and if you want to fall under the benefit of the fair use doctrine, the fair use defense. If you quote the original author, many times that also kind of shields you, because you didn't copy, you're not stealing, you are attributing. But of course, still that has to be done right, because if you take all my book and you put my name, but then you still intend to monetize, then of course you have not copied. You have not copied right. Next time we shall look at the fair use principle in detail. But Sheila, I want to end here and encourage that all the questions that have come out of my deliberation can be forwarded. So if the time allows now, we can look at them, or we can look at the questions at the end of both sessions.
Another round of applause for Senior Counsel Silva Chagulanyi. Thank you so much for that insightful discussion on copyright. I'm not a songwriter, but right now, if you asked me what laws protect songwriters, I know them offhand. And one of the key things that I got is that Section 8 is very important. Section 8 talks about commissioned works and works that are done in the due course of employment. So I hope you listen to the salient features that are supposed to be put in the contract, so that you know, in the event that you're going to sign an agreement between you maybe and a buyer, or maybe a big organization, you know what to look out for. And the second point was the poor man's copyright. If you get an idea, write it down. Don't be, for lack of a better word, a loudmouth. Because if you give out your ideas to people, they will put them down, they reduce them into material form, and they'll be the ones to own the copyright in the works and not you. Thank you so much, Silva, for that. And the questions that have been forwarded to me, I think we can do a Q&A session right now, really fast, and then council gets to respond to them. Before I read out the questions, allow me acknowledge the presence of our founding chairman, the founding chairman of the Copyright Institute of Uganda, Dr. Anthony C.K. Kakoza. Yes, so Doctor, together with council, are going to respond to the questions. Some of these questions are a bit repetitive, so, and some of them he discussed. Okay, been advised here. I think we should take a short break for maybe a drink, and if anyone wants to excuse themselves, they can do that during the break. And after that, we shall have the Q&A session.
Maybe we can actually do doctor's session, and then the Q&A can be added.
Okay.